Welcome and thank you for tuning in into Lead to Excel podcast, the hub where science meets leadership and transformation begins. I'm your host, Maureen Chiana, founder of the Mindsight Academy, a trailblazer in the world of neuro leadership. I'm an executive neuro coach, leadership transformer, and a neuroscience enthusiast, dedicated to empowering leaders, entrepreneurs, change makers, and Christians just like you to excel and thrive in every area of your life. This week, we're going to kick off with another high-impact episode, diving into the topic that is powerful, intriguing, and has the potential to shift your leadership journey. So, it's time to put on your thinking caps, grab your favorite beverage, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to Lead to Excel podcast. I am so excited today, and today is a different kind of podcast because normally you have me interviewing a guest or I'm going solo. But today I'm not solo and I'm not interviewing any guest, but rather I have Dr. Blessing Enakimio with me, who is going to be interviewing me. So this will be interesting today. So if you've ever wondered who Maureen Chiana is, if you've ever wanted to know more about me, well, today you're in for a treat because I have given her no script and I have given her free rein to ask me any question. So get your drink and relax and enjoy this podcast. Thank you so much, Dr. Blessing Enakimio. Welcome back to another episode. You've been here before, but in a different capacity. So over to you.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I count it as a privilege to have the power to control your podcast today. Let's get straight into it. Who is Maureen?
Oh, wow. You have gone straight into it.
Yes, tell us. Who is Maureen?
So, Maureen is a limitless lady. Maureen is a child of God, really loves God. Maureen is a wife, a mother to two grown adults. Actually, that is crazy to even think about.
Yes, isn't it? It is.
Maureen is curious, adventurous. Maureen loves impacting knowledge. She loves her rest. Maureen loves her self-care. Maureen doesn't have time for rubbish and time wasters. So that is me in a nutshell. Maureen is fun. And Maureen loves dancing.
These are all good descriptions, I suppose, attributes, and I suppose of Maureen. But at the core, if I were to Maureen you, at the core of it all, at the heart of it all, what do you stand for? What's your voice for?
My voice is for being able to understand who I am, helping others understand who they are through our biology and physiology. At the core, it's really being able to live a purposeful life, being able to be in control, to be intentional about what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, but also helping others do the same. So it's being able to truly live a life that God has ordained me and other people to live. So it's helping others understand it, but also helping myself live it every day.
Okay. Did you always believe this? Has this been your norm?
Do you know, I've thought about that question or the answer to that question myself quite a lot. And I've not always known what I know now, obviously, but I've always been curious about people, about how people behave. I've always been a people watcher, even from right when I was a kid. You know, that curiosity has always been there. I've always fought for fairness. I've always loved fairness anywhere I am. But this concept of understanding the brain and being able to live that life, I would say is quite new, but it is transitioned. But understanding that there's more to me has always been there, even as a child. And actually, you know, depending, and we see how this conversation goes, I'll attribute that to my mom. The ability to truly understand that I can do anything I want has always been there. And that has guided my journey through life.
Okay, let's dial way back to whenever you can remember. You know, what's your earliest, fondest memory of yourself as your true self? When was the first time you met Maureen?
Juna, I would probably say that it was when I was in primary school. I had gone back to Nigeria, and I was in primary school and I was being bullied quite a lot. And my mom was the one that said to me, stand up to the bullies. You know who you are. And she said, you're a child of God. You've got boldness. You know, something, not this, these were not her direct words, but it was linked to God and boldness. And the other thing she said is that don't let them control you. It was something in that light. And that was when, okay, she said it quite a few times, but it was when I actually took the action of standing up to the biggest bully I could ever remember, that I would say that was when probably got introduced to myself. Because from then on, I really stood up for anyone that I saw that was being bullied. I did not keep quiet. I would stand up. I would fight. I would talk. I would do what, well, not physically fighting, because I always ran away from that, actually. Because I always remember when I challenged someone, like she said, wait for me at the end of school today, then I would deal with you. I said, you would deal with me. I said, I will so deal with you. And at the end of school, I knew my driver was coming to pick me. So I kept stalling and stalling. And at the end, I saw a driver and I could see her coming. I said, honestly, you're so lucky. If our driver hadn't come, if he hadn't come on time, I would have so dealt with you. And literally ran into the car and ran away. So I had mouth. So I'm not surprised that I'm actually doing a lot of speaking, because I could talk, I could defend myself, I could stand up for myself, but I couldn't fight.
Okay. You're a lover, not a fighter. Okay. So primary school,
Yes.
that experience, did you have anything else around then that kind of highlighted to you that you had some inner strength, or maybe there was a power in your voice?
Power in my voice, yes. There are two incidents I can remember when I was in secondary. There was one before, let me start from the primary school. And this wasn't so much my voice, but it was understanding that I had power to do something. And that was when I mentioned it in the podcast I did previously. And when I was meant to go into secondary school and I was going to take exams, and because I had already lost, I think, 2 years or so, because we were traveling a lot, came from the UK to Nigeria, had stayed in different states. So I was actually quite behind. So I did not want to go into primary 6. And I knew that God was more than able to help me do that. But I knew that by prayer and by my hard work, it was possible. And I prayed so hard and worked so tirelessly to ensure that I passed the common entrance. I literally was praying almost every, 3 p.m., 12 noon, 3 p.m. I was praying, and I'll literally go into my room, lock the door and pray, and then study and study and study. And I ended up passing all the exams. And I think that was one of the first times I remember the capability that I had within me to achieve what I wanted. Now, also, when I was in secondary school, we were in boarding school, and the food we were being served was so bad that I literally led a protest, protesting about the food. And we marched, I got people to walk with me, and we marched around the dining hall, protesting and refusing to eat the food. But I did pay the consequences later, though. So.
Of course you would. Of course you would. And what did that do? Have the consequences, did that change your self-belief by any chance?
No, it didn't actually. It didn't. It probably even reinforced it because I was so proud to have served that punishment because at the end of the day, I really believed in what we were standing for, which was to be given better quality food. Did they give us better quality food after? No. But the fact that we did what we did really helped me. And I could see that trend through my career as well, in the sense that if something wasn't going the way I felt it should go, I could always stand up for myself or stand up for others.
Okay, but then let's go back to the example about the match in the dining hall. When you didn't get the outcome you wanted, isn't that a sign of failure? Or do you have a different definition of failure?
You see, then I didn't actually see it as failure. I actually saw it as success, that we raised our voices, the fact that we did something about it. So I actually did not see it as failure, which is interesting you asked that. Because if I did, it would have, kind of halted me from probably taking actions later. But no, actually, I was so proud of what we did. I was so proud of that. So no, I didn't. I think the first time that I would say I experienced failure was when I set up the salon and had to close it.
But that's as an adult. So in childhood, was there any?
So as a child, no, I never called it failure. You said, things that I had experienced. For example, when I wanted to study medicine so badly, I wanted to study law. My mom talked me out of it. That all lawyers will go to hell because they lie. So exactly. So that put me off because I didn't want to go to hell. So I then decided it would be medicine, but then I didn't get into medicine because through my A levels, I didn't study as much as I should have done. So did not get the grades and did not go into medicine. I was disappointed, but I went into biomedical sciences, which at the time was known as medical laboratory technology. And when the plan was started and then changed to medicine. But when I did start, I never changed again. I kind of really, enjoyed it and continued. I was disappointed, but again, in that circumstance, I knew that it was my fault because if I had studied harder, if I had put in the effort, I would have still gotten into medicine. I don't know, but again, you say that I knew that I had a role to play in me not getting into medicine at that point. I really can't actually figure out any time in my younger years that I attributed anything to being a failure or me being a failure. No. Blame myself, yes. Shame attached to it, no. Um, And maybe I didn't have time to feel the shame because I really needed to get into uni. So I was so focused on what I needed to do to get in. And I have never shied away from asking. So I did reach out to people. I had an uncle that was at a university and asked if he could help me. So I've never shied away. And in fact, that's how I actually ended up studying biomedical sciences, because I reached out to an uncle who was in Jos at the time. He said that, yes, he could help, that he's the one that actually introduced me to the biomedical, because I didn't even know anything about it. So I wouldn't say I didn't feel shame. And maybe that was, like I said, I didn't have time to feel shame. So it was kind of, okay, what's the solution? What do I do? Because I had to get into uni, because I had spent 2 years doing A-levels. So I really had nothing else to do. I had to get into university. Yeah.
Okay. What was life like as a university student for you?
It was fun. It was so much fun because I was in Jos, and I had friends, quite a few close friends that I had that were in secondary school together. So it was absolutely fun. I had a lovely time. First few years I was, having too much fun, but then did settle down to focus on my work. And no, it was really good. And the experience was fantastic, doing the biomedical sciences, really learning a lot about the human body. And it really opened my eyes to so much that I could do a lot with the degree. So now I found it really good. And it did help because I then ended up specializing in medical microbiology. So when I finished from Jos, I went to IFE to specialize, to finish the degree there. So that was great as well. So yeah, it was a fantastic experience. Great memories about uni.
What would you say you've gained from your university experience as relevant to the work you do now?
I would say it's the cost, because when we studied biomedical sciences, we were very close to those studying medicine. Okay. So we got to experience working with cadavers. These are preserved dead bodies. So it was almost like I was doing what I wanted, but in a different scope. It was really good. I think the interesting thing was just understanding how the human body worked fascinated me. And doing this course enabled me still achieve that. So that was the key thing for me. In a way, really understanding how the body functions, why it does what it does, how those different things always fascinated me. I would say that was the key thing. Working with the cadavers was really fun for me. While others were scared, I was so fascinated.
Why?
I suppose it's seeing it live. Because you read it in textbooks that the kidney is here, the blood vessels are here, and all but seeing it in a human being, I found so fascinating. So while other people were going, I was, wow. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Okay. Let's fast forward to you finished university. What was your first job?
First job was working in a lab in Lagos, and in a microbiology lab. That was an experience and a half, actually, because I was working in the lab, and we had to the lab was predominantly almost like a fertility lab, but it wasn't meant to be, but somehow that was the direction it was going. So we were analyzing sperm counts and a lot of sperm counting. And that also fascinated me, seeing the sperm's life and analyzing it. But I think what freaked me out more was when my boss at the time then said I had to help a patient collect the sample. And I'm going, excuse me? And he said, yes, that you go into the room and there are things and I'm going, okay, I'm out of here. And that was how I resigned and walked away, because there's nowhere else going to do that. But the experience was good, so I didn't last there. After that, actually, I left Nigeria and came to...
Okay, and what was your first job here?
So first job here was in a lab in Kent here, and that was also working in microbiology. And that was That was good. And I think the experience I had picked up from Nigeria really helped me a lot, because it was a small lab attached to a small private hospital, but also affiliated with an NHS hospital. So I kind of got to experience the NHS and the private sector in one. And it was fantastic. There was a lot of pressure because I was the only one in microbiology and we had to do quality assessments monthly. And that was always intense because if you didn't get it right, they could close the department.
Oh gosh.
So that kept me on my team because you see, you can't afford to give patients wrong results. The unfortunate thing was I was alone. If I had somebody else, it's easy to then say, what do you think here? But I was literally on my own in microbiology. So that was intense. But I would say I'm so proud of myself and so grateful to God that throughout my stay there, we kept passing the quality assessment consistently. So that was great. And then it was when I was there, I also did my master's in microbiology. And the reason I did it in microbiology was I had specialized in medical and I wanted to give myself a broader scope. So I then did general microbiology, which ended up being a lot of botany, which is plant pathology and all that. So I ended up having both. So that was interesting. Yeah.
Okay. And let's just unpack for a minute. You said you were the solo person there doing the microbiology, and let's talk about that. How did you cope with that mentally? With knowing what you know about the brain now, what were your mechanisms on a daily basis and on an annual basis, considering the weight you were carrying?
Yeah, interesting. It's interesting question. Do you know that there are two, looking back, there are two things there. It is that there was the pressure of getting it right, but actually I thrived on that, which
What
is
about the
weird.
fear of getting it wrong? Because that coexists. With the pressure of getting it right exists the fear of getting it wrong. So how do you package that? How did you package?
I focused more on the getting it right. I actually, yes, the concern of getting it wrong was there, but one thing that I made sure of was repeating it. So basically, you can do the fast route of doing a few analysis. But what I did is I gave myself every chance to get it right.
Okay.
So I made sure that instead of doing the minimum analysis, I did the maximum analysis that I could do. So it did cost the lab a bit more, but it actually helped me to be able to get the best result, because it's almost like you do all the analysis, then you can look back, and then so that even if they came back to say it was wrong, I could defend my result.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So you say, so the fear of getting it wrong wasn't too high, because I had done literally I'd done it by the book, done everything that needed to be done, and checked and cross-checked to ensure that I got it right. So yeah, and also because I said we're also affiliated with the NHS hospital, if I was very unsure, I would connect with my colleagues at the hospital so that we could, get the opinion. So I always made sure, and that's why I said I've never shied away from asking. I will ask and re-ask and use all the resources that I had. And I now that, I actually hadn't thought of it this way, but it's something I kind of now realize I had always done. And that really helped.
Where do you think that came from?
Where do I think it came from? The only place I can really think it came from was the way is maybe my upbringing, in the sense that my parents allowed me to challenge them, if that makes sense. I could ask questions. I could disagree. My mom didn't like it particularly, but she would respond to my challenging what she's saying. So it maybe that was where it came from. So I was able to ask questions if I did not, even if she was telling me off for something that she felt I did wrong and I felt I didn't do wrong, I would ask questions and keep refusing, or just I'll keep going till I kind of got what I wanted in a way. And that was why I always felt I would be a great lawyer.
Okay. Did you find through your career, in the years where you worked for others, did you see that same trait in play? Can you think of any time when maybe that happened?
Yes, that happened quite a few times. I remember when I was working in research. So after working in the lab and I left, I ended up working in research. And it was part of me starting my PhD as well. And the second place I worked, I noticed, I wasn't treated well. I was literally not allowed to do any experiments. And most of the time, it literally was just, Maureen, can you get the bean? Maureen, clear the bean. Maureen, bean. It was terrible. And I kept saying that, see, I'm not here to be emptying the bins. I'm here to be part of the research. So I need to be involved in it. Yes, later, you need to stay here for a bit longer. And I said, but at least let me be doing the other things that I could do before, because I'd worked in research before I had come into this particular one. He wasn't allowing me do much, the person I was working with. And so I went to his boss, who actually employed me, spoke to that professor and kept going back. He said, okay, try this, try. I kept going back. And I then noticed that he wasn't doing what I wanted either. And I realized that if I continue this way, I could be in this job for 3 years, not start the PhD, not move any further in my career. So I did, search out other people that I could speak to find out, okay, what other people's experiences, who could help me speak to this person. When I knew that that I wasn't getting anywhere, I then resigned and left. Yeah. So I think and it's played out a lot in my career, where I've never shied away from asking for help or speaking up for myself.
And you've resigned, you said, but have you ever lost a job where you were probably fired from a job?
I've never been fired, no.
What about your role being made redundant?
I had an experience when I was working somewhere. I don't want to mention the name of the company because it's still here. And I was the main IT. Then I was working in IT, and I was the main IT person on one of the sites. Eventually, they brought, because I kept asking for help. I said I needed help, and they brought in help. And this was a white male person who wasn't that experienced. So I trained him on the role. And then when I was on maternity leave, they re-advertised my role, which was, and I found that quite interesting. So I had to come and interview for my role, and it was given to this white male colleague of mine. And before then, I had noticed what my boss was doing. Most of the time he would be in meetings, he wouldn't invite me for meeting, which was weird. And I did bring it up, that I don't understand why I'm not being invited into meetings, but the person that reports to me is being invited into meetings. This was when I was pregnant.
Okay.
And so when I went on maternity leave, now I suppose they can't do that because they will not for it. But they did re-advertise my job, and he got it. And I came back, did my 3 months, and left.
Okay, let's unpack that. So in the moment, go back to that moment. What were your feelings at that point about yourself? Because that's what I'm interested in.
Okay, about me personally.
Yes, not the situation yourself.
About the situation, I was hurt. I felt discriminated against. You're probably going to the point of, did it affect my self-worth?
I didn't say that. You tell me what you're thinking.
I'm a mind reader, so did it impact my self-worth? I don't think so. I was so, because I was so confident in myself that it didn't impact my self-worth. No, I just saw myself being discriminated against as a Black woman, pregnant, and then just pushed to the side. That was how I saw it.
And what conclusions did you draw? What was your narrative around that time, in that season of your life?
The narrative was, it was a bias. It was discrimination. I'd seen it happen so many times. It happened to me, which wasn't fun, but it was more of, I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show you. That was it.
What did that mean? What
does that mean? That I will go above all of you that put me down, and I will do much better than I would even have ever done while I was there. And I did.
Did you? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's good. Okay. So I'm trying to get to a point in your life where you experienced failure of some sort. Is there been any beyond working for yourself as an employee? Was there any experience? Maybe you've gone for an interview and you thought, yes, I nailed this. Maybe you didn't get the job. And you had those thoughts.
There are two situations that I remember going for jobs I didn't get. And there were two reasons to it. One was the interview was going fantastic, absolutely great. And I mistakenly at the time then mentioned, because I think I had a son then, and I think they asked the question if I was planning to have more. And I said yes. Yeah, exactly. And I could see interview just go, and that was it. So I didn't get that job, and I knew why. And because if I came out even beating myself up, why did you say anything? And all that anyway. And that was one. The other time that I went for an interview, I didn't get that. I probably felt ashamed in a way. Well, someone had introduced me to the company, so I wanted to do so well. So I prepared very well. And I was so nervous, got in for that interview. They were asking me questions, which I knew, but I couldn't remember the answers.
Oh gosh, what happened there?
I had an amygdala hijack. Okay. Literally, my brain was hijacked. Now I know what happened, but then I didn't. But I was so nervous that all the questions they were asking, I couldn't remember the answer. And as I stepped out of that interview, before I even got to the elevator, all the answers came flooding back. And I kept going, but why did I not remember it while I was in there? I couldn't understand it. It's later when I got into neuroscience, I understood what happened, that I felt really ashamed. Okay. Because the person that put me forward because he knew what I could do. He knew my capability, and they had fed back to him how bad or terrible I did.
So 2 questions. What do you think caused the hijack? Can you remember? And then second question, how did you deal with the shame?
So what caused the hijack? I wanted to do so well because of the person that had introduced me. That was it.
Was that an expectation?
I would say expectation, and my reputation as well. An expectation on myself to do well because of the person, but also my reputation so that I don't look silly, so I look good. That was what caused it. How did I deal with it later? I did avoid the person for a while because I did feel ashamed, really, that I did, because I think it's not so much that I didn't get it, but they'll probably feed back to him that simple answer she couldn't even get. So I think that's where the shame came. So he then will probably be looking at me differently, that I thought she knew much, and so that was it. And I never had that conversation with him because I knew him, but I wouldn't say we're that close to have that conversation. But
have you still not had the conversation since then?
I never did. But we still connected because we still met each other, still met up socially, still came to each other's house, but never brought it up.
Oh, goodness me. If you were to bring it up now, what would you say?
Oh, I'll explain what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
And would
definitely
you
explain
think
what
that would
happened
be
and
okay?
laugh.
Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm okay now. Even now, I can laugh about it.
Is it because you know what happened?
Yes. I think it's because I know better. I'm older, I suppose. But now I can laugh about it because, yes, I definitely, because I know better. I know what happened there. Yeah.
Okay. Let's fast forward back to the exciting part of entrepreneurship. Tell me, you saw a problem, you saw a gap in the market, and you decided, yes, I'm best positioned. I can do this. I know myself. I'm positive about me. Yay. And then you went into hairdressing. Tell me about that.
All those things you said, I don't think, maybe just one was real.
Okay.
The other, because
Okay.
one, I won't say I wasn't a hairdresser. I don't even like doing hair. I'm still not a hairdresser. I don't like doing hair. But yes, I did see a gap in the market. And someone had said, why not? Why don't you do it? And I went, yeah. Well, initially I went, no way. But then I think I've told this story how the same person then came the next day with that book. If you want to walk on water, you've got to step out of the boat. And remember, I said that I have never been afraid of challenges. I've always embraced challenges because I know the God I serve. So when you're giving me a book, if you want to walk, yes, I want to walk on water like Peter. So yes, I will. You know what? I will do it. And I prayed about it and felt, yeah, go for it. And once I am sure God has said, go for it, you know what? Nothing can hold me back. And I think that's how my life has always been. So I did go for it. And I couldn't do hair. And that wasn't for me, it was really a place for women to come, relax and be pampered. And that was our slogan, relax and be pampered. And that was the vision, really. And the interesting thing is what I really wanted was a place where women could come and relax, open up, talk. And that was what happened. Women came, they would open up about their problems, and I'll be there counseling or encouraging, and then they would leave feeling wonderful with their new look and feeling great and confident. And that gave me so much joy. So yes, in that aspect, yeah. And because I had been doing consultancy work all that time, I thought that I knew enough, I suppose, to open a business like that. But it was a completely different, yeah.
Okay. What's that? What's the blank? Fill it in.
It was a completely different, unexpected experience because I learned so much. And there was so much I realized that there's so much I did not know. I've always loved excellence. So when we were setting it up, my husband and I just, really wanted to have a place of excellence. So we went for the best. When we got the building, we renovated it. It was a Japanese theme. It's very relaxing. It was lilac and it was great. I had a telephone system, things I didn't really need. Putting so much money into it, invested so much, thinking that everyone thought like me. It's almost like because what I love is that greatness, quality, wonderful, oh yeah. And that's what I created. So I literally created a salon for myself.
Yeah, but that's a major thing in business is when, as entrepreneurs, you design for you. It's a good way to start because you're likely to attract yourself, but you also have to pay attention to the market you're designing for and designing with the user in mind because you're very unlikely going to be the user. You have to consider that. But that's something we all learn, isn't it, in business?
Yeah, and that was a big lesson.
Okay, I'm interested in you and your brain in the space of hairdressing. Okay, so you're going through the exciting part of setting up. That's exciting. Talk about the middle when it's not so exciting. We're not in trouble, but just coasting. Where were you and who were you during those times?
Stressed, very, very stressed. Every month, I realized I had a huge responsibility of my staff because they had bills to pay, so I had to pay them. It's that constant planning and, okay, what can we do next? How can we bring in more clients? So it was just constant go, 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 go. I didn't stop. I was exhausted. The adrenaline kept me going. The weight of the responsibility on me was huge, and I wasn't expecting that. I think that was the key thing. So it was a case of what can I do? How do I make this work? What do I have to do to ensure that we keep going? Yeah.
And I know there's so much more to talk about, so I'm not going to dwell on these aspects. Where you went on and then you closed. Would we attribute this to failure now? Would Maureen say Maureen failed?
Yes, that was my narrative at the time. And that was when I would say I experienced failure. And probably the first time that I had identified something as being a failure, but I didn't just feel that the business failed. I felt I was a failure.
Why?
The plans I had were huge. So I never thought that, it wouldn't work because that was the mindset. I never imagined it wouldn't work. And I remember someone coming into the salon, maybe the day of the official launch, so maybe a month after we opened, and asked me what my exit strategy was. And I was so offended.
Okay.
Absolutely offended. How dare you ask me what my exit strategy is? There's no exit strategy. This is going to work. So to do all that, put in all that, and it failed. It was very personal to me because, I think it was just very personal. So I was a failure. The business failed.
How did you recover from that? Or have you recovered from that?
Yeah, oh, definitely. The recovering really came from the understanding that I then had about the brain. Because after I closed it, a few months later, my mom also passed away. So I was, I've shared this story how I was at a very low point. But it was in that low point that I heard someone speak, Dr. Caroline Leaf, about who switched off your brain. After I worked in labs for a few years, then I went to become a lecturer. And I trained in education, became a lecturer. And while I was lecturing, I was teaching in anatomy. So I understood the brain, I understood the physiology, and all that. But what she was saying was different. She was connecting brain to behavior. And that fascinated me. It's almost like it gave me a second, almost boost of life or so, because I went researching, got into neuroscience, discovered emotional intelligence, and also the interesting thing of how this new science was confirming scripture, because it was all new. Even when I was teaching, we at the university, we taught that the way your brain is at the age of 25 is the way it is for the rest of your life, because that's what we knew at the time. So to then discover that actually, no, there's new research coming out to say that the brain can keep rewiring all our life was so new. And that actually meant a lot more. And linking that to the emotional part, I then got to realize that the narrative I create, whatever I tell myself, becomes my reality. So if I identify as a failure, that is exactly who I'll be. So that was when I then started changing the narrative and realized that no, I'm not a failure. The business failed, but I'm not a failure. And I always remember saying, I don't see anything good that can come out of that experience. But it was when I then really got on to understand emotional intelligence that I realized that actually I learned a lot from the experience. So it wasn't a waste at all.
So you said it was a book you read. If you want to walk on water, you've got to come out of the boat, that led you into hairdressing. Now you've heard another lady who was talking about something to do with the brain, and now this sparked something in you. So would you say you've always been influenced by books, shall we say, or readings? What sort of intelligence attracts you?
Yeah, I think reading, I've always been an avid reader and researcher. I've always, even as a young girl, I could read 3 books in a day. I loved reading. So researching and reading has always fascinated me. And I suppose that was why I found research. So let me go back, I suppose that is why did not stay in hospital pathology, because I always felt it would be so boring doing the same thing over and over. While research, you never know what you're going to get each day. And that fascinated me. And the fact that I had to keep researching, reading, studying to understand the new things, that has always been something very fascinating to me. So, yes, I think I've always been curious. I've always loved researching. I've always loved reading. Even the way I studied, I realized that I wasn't the kind of person to study one book or just study a revision book. I had to really study about 3 books or 4 books and then relate them together to get to the real meaning. So I needed about 4 authors to really get to the depth of it. And that's how I've always been, yeah.
Okay, so what would you say has been your greatest find in relation to what you're doing now? What's the greatest revelation you found in your research?
The greatest find, I would say, is actually understanding how the brain works and the fact that it's consistently adapting, so that these neural pathways, I would say it's purely neuroplasticity.
Okay.
Neuroplasticity at the core of it, with the emotional brain, linked together. And that finding, I think, is just mind blowing, because it's so enlightening, it's so empowering, it's so liberating, and it's the core of who we are. So linking those two with scripture is just the core of who we are and how we can live. So that's it for me.
So if the brain is the core of who we are, if we can rewire our brain, does that then mean we can change who we are in essence? Does that correlate?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we can change who we are, because a lot of how we are has come from our experiences, our lives, to the point at which we become aware of who we are. And most times what we've taken into our brain is actually without our own knowledge. So parents feed kids information, teachers feed children information, the surroundings, church, life, friends, what friends say to you. I remember when people used to tell, especially when I went into primary school and my accent was different, and they would be mocking my accent at the time because it was very Yorkshire, had a strong Yorkshire accent. So they would be mocking the accent. And I became very conscious of how I spoke. All these things wire into us, and they're very unconscious. So yes, by the time you become aware of who you are, then the question then becomes, who do I want to be? Who does God say I am? And aligning those two, yes, we can then change the way our brain is wired to become who we want to be.
What have you done for yourself, for your brain, with this information?
I've literally rewired my brain, and I keep rewiring it anyway, to keep stretching myself. Okay, one of the things that I even find interesting is I've always been, like we've discussed here, fairness, fighting for my rights, or Maureen the activist. But one of the things that I've always shied away from doing is public speaking, kind of coming out into a public and giving a talk. No, because at the core of who I am, I'm quite reserved, quiet in a way. So public speaking is not something that
comes natural.
Yeah, exactly. So being able to rewire my own brain to the point that honestly, you can get me in front of any crowd, anywhere, short notice, I'll talk.
We've talked about rewire a lot. What does that mean? Is it like taking a cable, literally? What is step by step? How did you do that?
Yes, literally sticking a cable. Because we have to keep shocking myself into who I want to be. In our brain, we have the neurons, which are the brain cells, and how they are connected is the neural pathway, and that is the wiring. So to be able to change that to who I want to be, I had to change those neural connections. How? By what I tell myself, changing the narrative, the story I tell myself, but also being very aware of the thoughts I have, of what comes up for me, of what I say, what I speak about, also what I listen to, what I take in. So that, for example, public speaking is a typical one. When I go to speak, in fact, I remember someone telling me I speak so fast, and then I started trying to speak very slowly, and then that it doesn't flow. Each time I'm speaking, I will hear that voice. You speak so fast. People don't understand what you're saying. So I had to then change that narrative and go, you know what? I'm going to try and slow down so that I don't really lose people, but I'm going to keep speaking at least at that pace that is okay with me, and just keep slowing down, but not to the point that it becomes crippling for me. So I did take the feedback on board, but not to the extent my brain was taking it, almost like stopping me from speaking completely. Somebody has told me that I spoke like a warrior. So it's almost like I'm going into war. And that also almost stopped me. But I then had to change that narrative. No, it's the passion. Okay, I'm passionate about what I'm saying. So it's not a warrior, it's passion. So I make sure I keep smiling when I speak. So, all these little things you have to keep doing to create the narrative you want. If not, these subtle things people throw about end up wiring in the brain and then directing the way I could become. And it happens so often, yeah.
What's your greatest narrative, your highest ranking narrative, your script that runs in your head at the moment?
That scripture of I can do all things through Christ is one that, whether you wake me, in fact, even with my children, I've wired it into their own brain as well. And that really brings me to the place of that I am limitless. So anything I'm doing, as the challenge comes, as the resistance comes, which the brain will always do, it's something that comes automatically now to me. And it's a reminder that I can do all things. So then questioning, should I be doing it? Is it in line with what I want to do? Is it where I'm going? Then, I answer all that. And as long as it's all aligned, then I keep going, because I can rewire and do. And I think it's it. I can rewire and do what I need to do.
Okay. Your famous phrase is rewire your brain, become limitless.
The other slogan I love, and this is one that I've had for a few years, and it was years ago when I read, I think it's Isaiah or somewhere, I don't go, it's to soar high like an eagle. Where we mount up on wings like eagle. I can't remember the scripture, but that actually led me to holding on to that aspect of being able to soar high. You really soar high like an eagle. And I went to research how an eagle soars. To me, it's always an encouragement.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was going to ask you about your rewire your brain to become limitless. How do you apply that yourself?
Basically, what I've said, in the sense that anything I'm doing, it's remembering that the brain will resist anything new. The brain will resist anything uncertain. So it's now ensuring that I don't allow my unconscious brain to hold me back. So it's now doing those things that are uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable, it shouldn't stop me. Being uncomfortable is actually a sign that I'm growing. And it's so interesting how we talk a lot about procrastination. We talk a lot about self-sabotage. But that's the brain doing its job. So for me, when I find myself procrastinating, when I find myself self-sabotaging, I stop myself immediately. And this is where that emotional intelligence becomes so key. That awareness is always checking in, making sure that I'm being intentional about what I'm doing so that the brain isn't the one ruling my life, basically, but I am the one in control and not the memories that are stored in the brain being the one driving me, because our subconscious is what drives us most of the time, 95% of what we do. But I need to flip that in the sense that if I'm doing something, I need to be very alert and aware that I'm in control.
What's your greatest achievement to date?
You are one of my greatest achievements.
You work on
because when I started,
that's what I was expecting.
That's a good one.
I was like, what did I ask? Was that my subconscious brain asking a question? What's she saying? Let's check the next one out there for a minute.
Okay, yes, you are one of my greatest achievements. And I'll tell you why. Because when I started this journey, in fact, I've known you before I started this journey of rewiring the brain. And when I started, you were there. And it's almost like you became my, but maybe tool. Because you see, as I was saying it, you were doing it. And the fact is that at the beginning, I was talking a lot. I was, there was a lot of jumbled things as I was learning. I was so excited. I was doing. You took it on and you used it, and and I see. It's almost like it's apart from me doing it and seeing, and okay, I use it at work and all that, but you literally take it, use it, and then I'm seeing how the results it's achieving. And it really, you probably don't even know this, it encouraged me so, so much, because I'm going, God, this works. It really, it really works. Especially when I see the difference it's making in your own life. And I think one of the places I mentioned this at our retreat when we did it, that there was something you did. I'm not going to go into detail because this podcast is me.
Yes.
But I came for something you did, one of the events you ran, and I was literally in tears just watching you. And you were putting all the things you had learned about the brain, the emotional brain, the rewiring the brain into practice. And it just, I was seeing it live. You are one of my greatest achievements.
Do I get an award then for being a greatest achievement? You give me a certificate.
Yes. I'll give you a certificate.
Oh my God, that's thrown me. Okay. My next question. Right. Maureen, today, go back to your Maureen of your childhood and say something to her. What would that be?
Maureen, life can get quite tough. Life can be quite unpredictable, but don't be rattled. You'll be fine. Just be you, do you, hold on to what you know, what you believe in. Hold on to the promises God has given you and go shatter every barrier before you. You'll be fine. No matter how low it gets, you are limitless.
Okay, good one. Thank you, Present Maureen. Now, Present Maureen, you need to speak to future Maureen. Before you do that, what is next for Maureen?
What's next for Maureen? Now, Maureen has set up the Mindsight Women's Network for female leaders and business owners. And we set this up last year. So I now incorporate scripture into the neuroscience and emotional intelligence. And we've just celebrated 1 year, which is fantastic. So the next phase now is really expanding this network so that we can reach more women and give them the tools that they need to really soar high, because a lot of women are it's almost like struggling in darkness, the unknown, not knowing what they have or what they can do. So I'm just looking forward to helping so many women, empowering so many, giving women the tools, the knowledge, so that they can go out and do extraordinary things. Also, one thing that I've put off for so many years is writing, authoring books. That is going to be the next step. So watch this space.
Okay.
The first one is not far off, and it will be exceptional.
I'm sure it will be. It can't be anything less than that. Okay. There's one thing I want to really ask about. Your Mindsight store. Where did that come from? Why? I've got so many questions. Just where did it come from? Let's start from there. Because I think it's the Igbo girl. You have to trade. You need market.
Do you know, the only way, because I am from Anambra and you are from Imo. Abia, okay. And Abia is where Aba is.
Yes.
So for those who are not from Nigeria, there's a huge market in Aba. This is close to where Blessing, who is interviewing me, is from. So I think that shop came about from the influence you had on me. That's the only way I can put it.
I was wondering where you're going with this. This is your trade. You need to explain. Okay. Okay. Where did it come from?
So where did it come from? I've always worn T-shirts. Yeah. Actually, it was a few years ago when I started going to Nigeria, and I made some T-shirts that I wore for training and gave out some when I was doing training, and with very inspirational things to help people remember. Because you see, there's something about repeating words or seeing words consistently. It's not so much repeating them, but seeing them, because as you read them, they're wiring into your brain. So these T-shirts I wear like, I am limitless. I can do all things. I am more than a conqueror. When I wear them and people see them, they go, oh, wow, that's so cool. But you see, for me, it's not that they're saying it's so cool, but they're reading it and it's registering in their brain as well. So, I just felt at a point, you know what? Why not do some of these, create some of these apparels so that people can actually wear them themselves? And as they're wearing them, they're reading them. People are reading them. So they are being blessed. They are being rewired. And people that are reading it are also being rewired as well. So that was how it came about. I actually wasn't going to make it a shop. But in the process of starting it, creating these T-shirts, it was the quickest way to get it out there, easiest actually, because what I wanted to do before would have been so long-winded that it was just easier to design some and then just have a place where they can be sold. So that was how the Mindsight store came about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we likely to see a shop in Bluewater, the Mindsight store in Bluewater, or is it purely going to be online?
I don't think so.
Just checking. Okay, good to know. All right, to my question then. Maureen now, the present Maureen, you need to leave a note for the future Maureen. It's up to you how far ahead you want to go, but considering what you've got ahead, what you've got planned, even beyond your plans, I want you to look back at this, however, further on in the future, and hear this message. What would you say to Maureen?
Maureen, keep living. Live well. Keep enjoying what you're doing. Make sure that you never, ever lose your sense of adventure. Keep having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, I'm going to keep rewiring brains. So I think that's a given anyway. It's important that I don't get carried away.
Okay.
Like I did with this salon, and ensure that I live intentionally, live the life God has called me to live.
Okay. And what does living intentionally look like for Maureen? How do I recognize that?
The fun Maureen that is traveling, working with ladies, working with organizations, working with people all over the world. But everywhere I'm working, I'm having fun.
Okay.
So even in whether in Maureen in 80s, 90s, I want that will still be my core. So when I'm going speaking anywhere, still having fun. And one thing that I do now is everywhere I go, I make sure that I have extra days to either use the spa, relax on the beach, go to the sea, just nice, fun things. And that I want that to consistently be what I keep doing, because it's so important, actually in what I do, because the ability to just chill and relax and think and hear and listen to the Holy Spirit, listen to what God is saying, listen to me, what's in me, what's coming out, what do I need to do? That's so important to me.
Okay. If I had a fairy wand and I could wave it to give you whatever it is that you want, what would you want?
What do I want? Something that will give me so much joy is just having this network grow to the point that it's not about me at all, but women really helping each other, growing and impacting their own communities, lives, families, children. Just where there's so many women who have it, who know it and are living it and spreading it around, so that it's not me, but yeah, that would give me so much joy.
Okay, thank you. To leave one word for our audience today, maybe one sentence, maybe a parting line, what would you want to say?
Remember that you are more than able. You've got everything within you. Truly live a limitless life and truly live a life that you are called to live, so that you're living for you, not for other people. Just being able to understand who you are, who God has called you to be, and owning it and living it, so that just like the eagle that embraces challenges, that embraces, problems, you're able to, even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of challenges, when things go your way or don't go your way, you know who you are, whose you are, and what you can do. So become limitless, keep soaring, keep focused, keep focused.
Thank you very much, Maureen. Thank you for that. And on that note, I shall say, rewire your brain and stay limitless. And I'll hand the microphone back over to you. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you, Dr. Blessing Enakimio. Wow. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. That was good. So please remember to subscribe to this podcast. Remember to subscribe and share with everyone that you can think of. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And leave your comments below. Let's hear, your questions, your comments, what your takeaway is. I would love to hear that. And watch out for more of this, because Blessing has just interviewed me, and her part 2 is coming up soon as well, where I'll be interviewing her for her part 2. So watch out, watch this space. Thank you very much again, Dr. Blessing.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We've gotten to the end of another enlightening episode of Lead to Excel podcast. Thank you for spending your valuable time with us today. diving deep into the intriguing world of neuroscience and leadership. Remember, the journey to personal and professional excellence is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goals. If you found value in our conversation today and it has sparked insights or questions, I invite you to share your thoughts with us. Join our community on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, where we continue the conversation and share valuable resources to help you lead and excel. Please also consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but it also helps others find our show. Sharing is caring after all. Finally, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We have a treasure trove of insights, inspiration, and expert advice coming your way. And trust me, you won't want to miss a single one. Thank you once again for tuning in. Until next time, this is Maureen Chiana signing off, reminding you to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep leading to excel. Stay safe, stay motivated, and let's keep soaring high.